Lorcan, I'd like to put exactly the same question to you, I suppose. So where do you think the line should be drawn?
Well, it's a very good question because the questioner raises a number of distinct issues. He talks about whether or not slander should be permitted, lies and misinformation, and then he talks about incitement to violence. And those are all quite distinct concepts, and the lawyer would tend to try and break those down and analyze them separately. But what struck me about the conversation thus far is that, starting with our friend, the MEP, and right away around, it seems that there's a degree of agreement as to what constitutes hate speech, and the comment was made, we're all aware of what hate speech is. In fact, I would dispute that, because the question of what constitutes hate speech is, in fact, a question that is very much contended and argued over before courts. For instance, my organisation is currently involved in advising and consulting on a case that may go to the Grand Chamber of the European Court of Human Rights as to whether or not certain remarks about Islam are part of an open debate in Austria, or whether they constitute hate speech in the sense that it hurts and offends religious feelings. And we've moved somewhat in Europe, I might suggest, from a position in the past where courts like the European Court of Human Rights held that a fundamental part of liberal democracy was ideas that shock and disturb as being part of the conversation, to now a sense where we're moving towards a greater level of censorship about what can be said online. I think a point of agreement on the panel would certainly be that incitement to violence, which is part of the question, is something that I think most right-thinking members of society would oppose because of the direct harms involved with it. But the more nebulous concept of hate speech, which has not been really well defined, and there are different standards around Europe as to what constitutes hate speech, raises a real problem with the way it's being enforced now, whether it be by algorithms or by greater intervention by internet and social media companies, as to a chilling out and a removal of legitimate points of view from the conversation in Europe because they upset certain people. And a remark was made by Julia here, which is that countering speech with speech, and I don't want to misrepresent what you say, but I would agree insofar as one of the ways that a free exchange of ideas happens in a society is that we counter speech with other speech. We not necessarily counter it in a liberal democracy with censorious mechanisms to remove speech from the public square or to penalise those who engage in speech that may well upset certain people.